Whoa there, Space Cowboy. Brokeback Bebop is a podcast with explicit content intended only for mature bounty hunters. Listener discretion is advised. Listen to all 40 steamy sessions of the show right now by supporting Brokeback Bebop at patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast.
I think it's time to blow this scene. Get everybody in the stuff together. Okay.
3, 2, 1, let's jam!
Hi everybody out there, welcome to another session of Brokeback Bebop. We're here, Zach and Steven coming at ya to talk about another episode of Cowboy Bebop. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm broadcasting from a satellite just outside Earth's orbit.
Yes, like every episode of this podcast, we use lasers to carve it into the crust of the Earth so that it can always remain.
Imagine like a big record player, but it's like the size of the Earth, and we are essentially scratching
of a record. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and that's what you're hearing right now.
Scratching
so welcome
right away at it.
Like a cat at the foot of your grandmother's chair.
So what's up? How you doing today? Ready to talk about some space travel?
I'm so excited.
Why did I ask you how you are? And you're like, yeah, how you doing?
Yeah, how are you?
Are you hiding something?
I am hiding something, Zach.
Okay.
I secretly, I know that this can be hard for you to believe,
I
given
doubt
that we've
it.
met in person several times
Yeah.
and knew each other in person far before
For many years, yeah.
the sphere of this podcast. I am a 7-foot-tall former basketball player who is also 3 years old and a hacking genius.
And a drag queen
Yes.
who's had one of those operations.
You know. I'm not going to say which one.
No, I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe all that.
All
I've
that
met
tracks.
you many times, and that tracks. That tracks. So before we get into the episode, I wanted to talk for a second about how growing up, I feel like it was instilled in us, because we were that generation that kind of remembers what it was like to not have the internet and like smartphones and stuff all the time, but also like the first generation that always had it around and is pretty well versed in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we still remember the dial-up days. There were days when we didn't have a cell phone, or we didn't like we had to do something not online to figure something out. But not much. We've had it around most of the time. And I feel like it was always instilled on us that hacking was this big thing to be afraid of, that it's gonna happen all the time. Does it really?
That's still instilled in me, Zach, because my literal work software, like the web license or something, expired, and so Google Chrome was like, you cannot go to this website, you are in danger of an attack. And I was
what
like,
website were you trying to get on?
My literal like work schedule website that we use to like
Interesting.
handle everything. Like it takes payments. It's like, don't take payments on a web. Don't enter credit card information. I'm like, everyone's credit card information is here. Wahahaha.
What is hacking actually, though? Because it's not the way that it's portrayed here or in most children's entertainment, where like everything on the screen starts manipulating and moving around and stuff. It's more of a way to like peep through people's stuff without, right?
Yeah, I think from what my experience,
We've been
in
taught
the
to be
hacking
scared of
sphere.
it, but we sure haven't been taught what it is.
No, and I don't think that we have a realistic vision of it. Like, it's not always like Live Free or Die Hard, where there's some guy in a basement dungeon who's trying to take over like the nuke codes,
Or like
whatever.
Neo in the beginning of the Matrix, just
Yeah.
typing green code.
I feel like it's mostly identity theft is all it is. It's somebody using my Ubisoft account. Like, it's not like anyone is
Like
getting my
literally
bank
taking over
information.
your computer. It's someone like finding out enough information to find out the rest of your information.
Yeah,
Because everybody puts everything online.
it's true.
Well, I guess, I don't know. Have you ever been hacked? Have you ever been scared of being hacked?
Now, I'm not... You know what the only hacking that goes on Zach. Let's be real for a minute. It's
Okay.
these goddamn people who are on Instagram. All of a sudden, they're posting things in their story about how bit mining got them $1,000.
Okay, so we've talked about this, maybe not on podcast, but a lot, that we had a friend, or not really a friend, but someone that we know of.
Well, I just had a friend last week. It happened to them.
And I had another friend too. But on their Instagram account, all of a sudden it was like them sharing DMs about how well cryptocurrency has been going for them, and like pictures of themselves. Like it wasn't real. Like at the time,
it's crazy.
We were like, how can it not be real? He was in it. He was right there
You
talking
were
about
there.
it. It looked, but those aren't real. And I've now seen other accounts have it happen to them, and it happens like the same way.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I've also noticed there's the thing that like every attractive person that I follow on Instagram has shared, like people make like fake Instagram accounts that are advertising like OnlyFans and stuff for people.
Yeah, those are fake. I have somebody I know too who that
You
happens
lose a
to.
couple $1,000s and you're like, oh man, all of
Damn
those
it,
accounts
not
were
real.
fake. Not a
Shit.
single one. Well, maybe this one.
One or two.
Okay, let's talk about the episode. We're talking about session 9 of Cowboy Bebop. It's Jamming with Edward.
Yeah, what'd you
Finally-
think about this? I'm so excited that we
We'll
finally
get there,
have
we'll get
Radical
there,
Edward
we'll get
now.
there. Finally, 9 episodes in, we've got the whole main posse. It's very strange for a TV show to be this far into it, and there's only 26 episodes or whatever, and it took us this long to get to meet all the main characters.
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it?
This episode was storyboarded by Shinichiro Watanabe. It was directed by Ikuro Sato, and it was written by, how do you pronounce D-A-I?
D-A-I?
Yeah.
Dai.
Dai Sato wrote the episode. In Japan, it first aired May 1st, 1998, and in the U.S. on October 1st, 2001. And yeah, I do like this episode. I was a little bit nervous of if I was going to like the Ed character or not, mainly because the only thing I had seen of that character was a little clip of the live action Ed. And I saw that and thought, yikes.
Yeah.
And I knew that in anime, characters like that are more prevalent and can be played off in a way that makes more sense. I still had the feeling that maybe I wasn't going to be that into it, but it didn't bother me. If anything, I'm happy that there's a little bit of levity in this episode. There's a little bit of humor. I think that's good for the show. I think it made for like a quicker paced episode.
Sure. And I think Ed helps with that going
Yeah,
forward,
I
too.
agree. If anything, the voice acting gets a little bit on my nerves sometimes.
Yeah, the Ed voice actor or actress is the one who I think is the biggest disparity between the Japanese and the
How so?
English. Just, I think that the other voices are a little stronger. Like Spike's is obviously super strong, maybe better than the Japanese. Same thing with Jet. Faye is pretty in line with the Japanese one, but I'd say Ed's is not even more childlike because Ed still sounds like a child because
I was going to say what makes it different. Like less. I thought for a second while we were watching the episode, I had Lily look it up. I was like certain that whoever was voice acting Ed was the same voice as Tommy Pickles from Rugrats. It's not.
Was it? It's not?
It's not.
Because the person who voices Tommy Pickles is
Does
a pretty
everything.
prevalent voice
Yeah,
actor. Is that Tara
which is what I
Strong
thought.
still?
I'm not. There are a couple of those big names. Was it Tara Strong?
That voiced Tommy, maybe.
There's like Debbie Derryberry. I don't know
Yeah.
if you know that voice actor, or I don't know. There's all kind. It's probably Tara Strong.
Yeah.
But this one isn't. It's someone who mainly did anime dubs.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it did kind of have a little bit of that Chucky kind of like the I can't do
Sure.
it, but like the back of the throat kind of quality that Tommy's voice has. I feel like Ed's had it a little bit. Did you write down any trivia? Let's
I
do
do have some trivia.
I just have 2 questions.
I have 3, so I'll go first.
Okay.
How old does the old man say that Ed is when they're going through all those people trying to figure out?
Just 3 years old.
Yeah.
I was wondering if maybe someone else said something and it was older. What is Jet given that is a delicacy on Earth?
I'm like picturing it.
Steven just straight up closed his eyes and went to sleep for about 10 seconds.
I don't know. Fish heads?
Piyoko is what it's called. Piyoko. Those little treats that that Ein was eating.
That
or
was
Ed said that they
literally
really liked them?
my second question. Just the way you phrased it, I didn't realize it.
How did you phrase it?
What does the kid want Jet to buy from him for exchange for the info on Ed?
Yeah, I guess. Okay, sure. And the way you asked it, I probably wouldn't have gotten it either. So we'll go ahead anyway. You got one more.
What is Ed's full name?
I'm not gonna get it. It's like 4 names, and you do like it. Ed made it up. I remember that part. But
I had 4
wasn't paying
questions.
attention. Okay, well, we're on this one right now.
It's Edward Wong Hao Pepelu Tedruski the Fourth.
Okay.
And then my last question is, who gave Ed their
still-
name?
I still themselves.
I thought you only had 2 questions.
Yeah, and I've only asked 1.
Oh, shit.
The other one's really easy. What nickname does Ed give the satellite?
Impu.
Yeah.
I like it.
All right. Great work.
All right, everyone. Strap up your loin
Oh,
cloths.
I'm strapped on. I got it strapped on.
Make sure your baldos are properly secured.
It's a different podcast. People don't know what that is over here.
Oh, they know if they're
Just look
watching.
it up.
It's time to find out through one of my favorite segments that we do here over at
Is it?
Brokeback Bebop.
Is it?
We're going to find out today, did Zach comprehend the episode? Where Zach has 20 seconds to describe to
I was
us
waiting for
in
this
great
week.
detail if he comprehended the episode this week.
Period.
In full stop.
I named the segment, but I'm just now getting pissed by how what the word comprehend implies.
Do you not think it's a fair question to ask?
I feel like it makes me look like an idiot.
Well, that's why you have a chance right now, Zach, to prove yourself not an idiot.
Okay.
Prove all those doctors and teachers and policemen wrong.
Yeah, so far I haven't done that. It's really hard for me to get A, B, C through the entire episode by the end of it. Granted, Steven, you've done like 70 of them now, and I've done like 8 or
Yes.
whatever.
8.
And I always feel like I get good details in there, but it's just hard for me to get like through the end, and that's the challenge.
It's
So
tough.
we'll see. I do feel like I have a better chance at getting to the end of this one, but I also feel like I might leave too much out. So we'll see.
Well, we'll see. Sometimes the sun is a kind lover, and sometimes you get burned. So let's see which way I have you orbit around my glow this fine day, Zachary.
I'm to the point where I'm just panicking and not listening to you.
That's good. All right, you ready?
Sure.
3 on go, like always.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, a go.
Mysterious images are being carved into the earth, and the Bebop team is after the bounty, following after a mysterious hacker named Radical Edward, who they end up meeting up with and becoming friends with. Ed has teamed up with the real culprit, a satellite that's been carving out these images, and Ed is willing to help the Bebop team, but wants to save the satellite at the same time.
Stop.
And
That was great, Zach.
it wasn't perfect, but okay.
You got most of the stuff that I wanted you to.
I wanted to get them ending up all together.
Yeah, that you didn't get the Ed join the crew, and you didn't necessarily talk too much about the things that they were hearing about Ed beforehand, but that's okay.
Sure.
I thought that was really good. That was one of your finer performances here.
Okay, I'll take it.
I'm gonna give you a strong
Okay.
B+, Zach.
Yeah, I'll take it. Sure.
That was really good.
That almost feels a little overly generous to me.
No, I thought that was really good.
Tell me I'm good a few more times.
You're
I just
good.
need to hear I'm
You're good.
Thank you. Okay, well,
You're
thanks.
good.
What do
Yeah.
you think of this episode? Let's hear about it.
I like
from
it. I
Mr.
think
Anime.
that for an episode whose plot line predominantly is pretty inconsequential to the world, you still get a lot out of it. We get Ed, who gets added to the team.
Well, what do you mean by that? Because we
Well, I mean, the whole satellite thing
Sure.
isn't,
But I mean, who's talking about sea rats either?
it's true. But I love that we get to add Ed. I think Ed is super fun. I think Ed adds a lot of whimsy to the show. And we get a little bit more information about the world. There was a pretty major gate catastrophe that made Earth basically unlivable 50 years
the
before.
moon rocks are raining down.
Yeah, so and that
It's scary.
shaped a lot of what the Bebop world looks like and why Earth is the way it is. We see in like the first episode they go to Tijuana and it's not the nicest looking place, and we see them other planets, and like Mars is super nice. We've seen them there. We've seen them at casinos that are super like lush and lavish. So Earth has become this kind of not so great place anymore.
Do you watch a lot of Futurama? Have you seen much Futurama?
I've seen some Futurama.
It's like how there's old New York and new New York. It's like
Yeah.
the old New York is still there, but it's underground and it looks like run down and ravenous.
Exactly. So I think that that's cool that we get to see that like bit of the world building. I also want to talk a little bit about Faye and Ed's relationship and a couple of differences in the dub and sub that I think are worth noting. So Faye and Ed form a pretty close relationship throughout the show.
Spoilers.
Closer than Ed is to other people.
Spoilers.
But a major part of that is that Faye and Ed, they refer to Faye as like her big sister, her like Onisan. So they, in the show, Faye's like, don't worry, your big sister's got you. And they're kind of trying to win Ed over early on. And they don't do that in the English one because it doesn't like, you don't use the phrase like big sis the same way in English. Like,
if anything, it's the opposite, because in the way that I see this episode, the whole runner is that Faye promises Ed something, and we don't know what, but it ends up being that they'll take them along on their journeys, and at the end of the episode, Faye's like, let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Faye's like trying to cut, and that holds true, but at least in the terms of like getting Ed to think that Faye could be trusted, she starts that, and that kind of stays throughout the show. They form a little bond, and that's sweet because Faye doesn't really have a lot of connections with people, so it's nice that the connection with Faye and Ed grows.
Let's talk about Ed. Ed's a hacker. Ed is really young. A really young character. Like, we looked it up, and they're 13. Supposed to be 13. So what's their background? Are they from Earth?
Ed is, I think, from Earth, lives on Earth right now by themselves. We do learn more about Ed as the show progresses, so I'm not going to spoil anything.
Some like background episodes, cool.
But Ed's a really cool character, I think, who's really interesting, and I have a lot of respect for Ed as a character because I think even at 13 years old, Ed knows exactly who they are, and Ed's here to have fun. Ed
but
could have
still
easily,
very much has like that childlike.
Yeah.
There are two ways to look at the type of character Ed is. One way as like a non-binary, potentially like genderqueer type character, and that probably holds true, but the other thing that I see is just this childlike, like really smart kid, but that is still in that like sandbox mentality of, like, I can make up my name, I can make up everything. And I think there's both sides of that. Whether Ed like knows who they are, but is still figuring out who they are too.
Exactly. And I like that. I think Ed's a super fun character, and I'm really excited that we get to have Ed on the show now because I think that Ed's probably as far opposite from Spike and Jet as they can be.
Which I think the show needs because it never gets dour for me. I'm never like, oh my god, because of how dark it is. But this episode is like bouncier and a little funnier than any of the other episodes have been, and that's a nice change of pace. And it still has the action and everything else you expect based off of the previous episodes. But it was nice. It was a nice kind of breather of an episode. I do feel like it's a little bit light of an episode. You are right. The more that I think about it, it's a good episode, but there isn't really a whole lot to chew off of in it, other than like the new characters and how that changes the dynamic. I kind of noticed in this episode the big action sequence at the end of the episode is silent, other than sound effects. There's no music.
There's no music.
I thought that was an interesting choice for the show.
It is an interesting choice, and I don't know whether that is to represent like how. And even though in space they're normally fighting, but that satellite has been alone in space for however long, without that music and thing. I don't know if it was just because they didn't have a song ready for it or what it was.
I doubt it's that, because the show clearly puts so much thought into its sound and music. I'm sure if it's silent for a reason, but it might kind of stick out.
To kind of contrast, because we'll talk about the song I really like in a second, but the whole episode kind of is pretty light, like we're saying. And then it kind of very quickly escalates to a life or death laser battle in space. So maybe they wanted to seem a little more intense by not having music playing there. I always am sad to be deprived of another song by this show. But I do want to talk about the Ed song, the do 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 do. I love that.
Picked it up on it.
I love it.
I don't know if I noticed it that clearly. Is it a recurring kind of?
Yeah, they play it a bunch in the episode, and they play it in the future for some Ed stuff. But that's like the Ed song, and it's super fun. It almost sounds kind of Rugratsy, like it's very like kind of fuzzy sounding and like just kind of fun, like somebody literally just sat down like an 80s like synthesizer machine and played like a thing and then looped it for 2 minutes, but it's great.
A question I had while watching the episode, from the very beginning, Ed is familiar with the Bebop crew and has been watching them. Why them specifically? What's the interest in their group?
I think now it's my understanding that Ed doesn't know about the Bebop before the stuff with the satellite, but Ed is seeing who's coming after the satellite just because Ed's been tracking it too. And Ed's like, oh, this is a fun group. So Ed probably sitting there goes into all the stuff about them and is like, oh, they've been doing this, this, and this. They're like a group of people. They'd be fun to have like an adventure with. Like, maybe I'll help them out. And Ed also probably figures out the Bebop's been asking questions specifically about Ed, which piqued their interest too.
That's something I like about this episode, that Ed has clearly made a name for themselves, but not a face, you know?
Yeah.
Everybody has heard stories. Everybody knows the hacking talent. Maybe people have seen the effects of what Ed can accomplish, but nobody's actually seems to have seen them or like really know. But everyone sure thinks they know. And I thought that made for a really fun sequence where they're going around asking questions, and especially the moment where it's like right before a commercial break, Jet is like, well, we found out that he's a 7-foot-tall ex-basketball player, guru, drag queen, and then he like slurps the food that they have down or something. I thought the way that the voice actor delivered that made for a really fun joke.
Good.
Well, what do we need to touch on this one? It's a little bit lighter. Is there anything in this episode that I might forget that I need to remember for future
I know,
ones?
most of it was the Ed. See what else I wrote down. Yeah, I mean, we get Ed. I like the mystery behind Ed. I think that Ed is still kind of a mysterious character because our original
they're just by themselves in the middle of the planet, like hacking into everything.
And I'm looking forward
so
to like getting to see like Ed and Ein interact.
Okay.
Because they're probably the two smartest people on the ship. Because let's not forget, Ein is like the world's smartest
data dog.
Yeah.
That's something they've definitely sold short so far. We basically just get little glances of Ein like being on the ship, not so much springing into action, as you would say.
Yeah, so I think that Ein and Ed together make a better team than Ein does solo on the Bebop. I think it'll also be nice to have a bit more energy balance, like you were saying, with like Ed being a little bit more lighter compared to how
there's been so many Spike episodes, and Spike has such a specific energy. And Spike can be a pretty funny character. He's definitely not humorless. It makes the show pretty samey from episode to episode so far.
Totally.
This one felt totally out of left field, and Spike is hardly in it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to kind of see how the energy shift with the Bebop, how you like that, and how that all changed. Although next week is not an energy shift, it's Jet episode.
Another backstory episode, which I'm excited for. I think Jet, he's such a rock in the ship, and he's so solid, and he's a little bit non-committal, and it's interesting to be close. I've seen the episode already. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about it yet, but I'm excited to dive into that one because I think in some ways I enjoy learning his backstory more than I enjoyed learning Spike's.
Sure.
But we're still on this one. Let's talk about a couple more things.
Yeah.
What are some of the funnier moments from this episode? Which moments make you laugh?
My probably favorite like funny moment of the episode has got to be when Ed just like sees them leaving and is like, all right, so then takes like control. He'd already like hacked into the Bebop and turns them around. And I love like the look on Jet, especially his face, because he's like, what the fuck is happening to my ship?
All of a sudden their ship is taken over. He was just driving it.
Yeah, so they're like freaking out. I think that just shows like how powerful, I guess, Ed actually is.
But also, I don't think Ed is very disdainful or angry. I don't think they're even like, what the fuck? Why are they leaving? It's just kind of like, oh, too good for me, huh? Turning them around.
Right? Ed's like, oh, guess they're not coming to get me. I'll bring them back. It's fine.
It is funny the ways that they continue to, because every episode we meet a new character, and Ed, just like Rocco. Ed, just like Roku last week, could have been one of those characters that shows up as this hacker that's important to the mission that they're on, and then who leaves at the end of the episode. And so it's interesting the ways that they write these characters to how they end up permanently involved in the show. I think is interesting.
Imagine watching this show, not knowing that Ed becomes a permanent fixture on the Bebop.
Really, your only clue is the quick, tiny glimpses of Ed in the theme song.
Exactly.
Which, if you don't know the character, it's really quick. It's easy to miss.
Yeah, and I think the first time I watched this, I hadn't put too much thought. I was like, okay, they're just putting like a person that they maybe is going to come back again. Right. But when they're flying away, leaving, you have no reason to believe that Ed's going to remote control them back to pick them up. So I kind of like how they do that at the end of the episode, kind of like, actually, this one's sticking around. which is nice. Because the first person that we saw them add to the Bebop was Ein,
Right.
then Faye, and now Ed, and that's kind of it in terms of our crew. So now we have all 5 members of the Bebop, and it's exciting.
Do you think that Ed looks like a Gorillaz?
Yes.
Ed looks just like one of the Gorillaz.
I would be shocked if Ed wasn't some of the original
art
idea.
style isn't inspired by Cowboy Bebop and Ed's character.
Speaking of the Gorillas, did you see that like Billie Eilish brought out the Gorillas and the crowd was like silent because they're all 12 at Coachella?
But I feel like that's who likes the Gorillas even still.
Maybe it's the
But
wrong
I
kind
guess
of-
the last couple things that they've done have kind of like
yeah.
come and went. Interesting.
I like the Gorillas.
I was like a 13-year-old when the girl I was dating at the time was like, this is the entire backstory of the Gorillas. I was like, I don't care. And then Noodle was missing, but they came back.
They drew him again.
Are they a TV show?
It's really... I remember trying to explain the Gorillas to somebody, and I was like, yeah, so they're like a band, but none of them are actually real. It's all just like this one guy, and then this other guy raps sometimes.
It's Blur. It's the band Blur. It's
Damon...
the dude from Blur. Yeah.
Something. I've never listened to
Do you like
Blur.
the Gorillas? I
like the
know,
Gorillas.
Like their popular songs. I don't know if I like them that much.
I like 2.5 of their albums.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which half?
The one that came out when we were in college, the Humans one. I like some of the songs off of that.
Yeah, I didn't listen to that one.
Yeah.
Well, you can tell that we're just stuffed with stuff to talk about.
I know. It's hard because like this episode is like exciting and it's fun, but there's not that much more stuff to talk about that happened.
Yeah.
You know what I can talk about? What I wanted to talk about at the beginning. We're just going to kind of copy paste it to the end here. Anime talk. If there's a place to do it, here's the place. I'm watching a lot of seasonals this spring's anime season. I wanted to shout some of them out that were interesting to those who may be interested in what's happening right now in the anime world.
Even though by the time the audience at large will hear this, it's like a year from now. But still, like some stuff maybe.
So the ones I already talked about were Kaguya-sama Love is War Season 3 airing, and Spy Family, which is getting an adaptation, which is airing right now as well. Both of those are fantastic. But I wanted to shout out a couple of lesser mainstream known titles that are kind of cool. There's one called Shikimori is Not Just a Cutie. It's about a couple where the guy is like
I love
super...
a good chicken mori.
Right? The guy is like super clumsy, like super unlucky, and he's dating this like really cute popular girl that like loves him and wants to just like protect him from all the stuff that's like gonna fall on him or like catch him from like falling down the stairs and stuff. Super cute, love it, good side characters. I also started watching one called Birdie Wing Golf Girls Story, and that is the gym of the season. It's about this street girl. She comes from the streets, and she doesn't play golf. She, and I quote, hits balls with a stick for money. She's about the streets. She's trying to earn a buck to keep her and her like found family sisters and these little kids that they have in this bar safe. So she like imitates or like fills in for actual golf pros like in tournaments so they like do better. She like disguises herself as them. But I have it on good authority that the direction this show is going is she's going to be challenged by somebody who's just as good as she is, and she's going to want to be a pro golfer herself. So if you're into golf or cute anime girls, this show might be for you.
Steven, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to a podcast and anime was brought up for a second, and they kind of had an anime. I don't know how hot of a take this is.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about the take that anime is racist? Do you know
what
this?
way?
Do you know this take? In the way that the heroes are often light-skinned, not squinty-eyed, and the villains are often dark-skinned, squinty-eyed.
I disagree.
I don't know anything about this. I just heard someone like kind of impassionately talk about it.
Very specific examples. I think that there's been a history of a lot of racist stuff in anime.
In all media. I
don't think it's any worse in anime than it is in American cartoons. I think it is worse in American cartoons in that time than in anime.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I just heard that, and I thought it was interesting food for thought. And I'm sure that, like... Well, maybe it says more that people can deduce all of anime as, like, one thing when you don't really do... You're not like, oh, Looney Tunes did a shit ton of fucked up Asian racial stereotypes back in the day. Cartoons in general sure are racist, huh? Mm-hmm. So I guess that makes sense. But I thought it was interesting, and it was
I'm sure that's
see
happened in an anime before.
But it says more about, like, the creators of a certain show or something than...
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, anything you want to say last about jamming with Edward? Any types of jam you want to discuss before?
I'm excited for the episode where we get Ed doing the wiggly arms.
I think that happens in the next one.
Yeah, I think so.
I saw it.
I think it's the next episodes where we get the Wriggly Arm Ed. That's my favorite Ed.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
we're gonna sign this one off. A little bit of a lighter week here on
Yeah.
the Brokeback Bebop, but I still had fun. It was a
Just
really
some
good
light
episode.
spotting.
Interesting character. No, it's
No
spotting
heavy
is putting
flow.
it lightly. It's the flow is very heavy, but the flow must now be
Plugged
padded and plugged up as we sign off for
Is that how
this
it
week
works?
of Brokeback Bebop. I don't know.
It's like
I'm
sticking your finger in a
I feel like
sink.
I feel like maybe that's what thimbles are for.
Oh.
I never knew. I feel
I
like
used to
maybe
cut-
that's what
but
thimbles
that's
are
why
for.
girls had to make cotton swabs and cotton balls. I mean,
Oh, sure. So do they
Build
go
a dam
before
like a
or after
beaver.
the thimble?
after.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for hanging out with us. This was a mess. I don't think there's any better way to end this than just saying
Wait,
goodbye.
Zach, we didn't talk about our captains of the Bebop.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
God damn it.
Uh-huh.
Ed.
Yeah, sure. Right.
Okay.
I mean, there's not really even... I kind of like the sad, droopy satellite a little bit.
Yeah,
but,
I do too.
But,
The
yeah.
sad girl, emo satellite boy.
It's like, but are you still there?
I'm alone, so I draw these
Alone.
pictures.
That was what I was like during recess in elementary school. That is, I would sit by myself in the gym
And
during
scrape
recess
into the ground.
and wonder if anyone else like noticed how sad I was. Do you guys notice me? And they're like, no, we're playing Foursquare or whatever the game was called. I wouldn't know because I didn't play it. So that's the end. We've already signed off. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
She's back in a little while, trying to make me smile. I'm lost in the dark, walking lonely miles. Seems how the years go by, no need to wonder why. Never had a chance to think.
Thanks for listening. Support this show and our podcast network at patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast, where starting at $5 a month, you can get immediate access to all 40 outrageous sessions of Brokeback Bebop. See you next time, Space Cowboy.